After you've decided upon your protagonists, antagonists, and your target audience, it is advisable that you choose the right point of view for your narrative. Hey guys, how are you doing today? It's P.E. Gilbert, your blogger, writing consultant, and the author to the fantasy novella, The Sultan's Daughter. And today, we are going to discuss how to choose the right point of view, or POV, for your narrative. But before we go any further with today's video, hit that subscribe button. Unsurprisingly, choosing the right point of view for your narrative is a critical element of the writing process, as it determines the angle from which your story is told and how you convey your narrative. You can create a phenomenal, captivating character like Dom Cobb from Inception, Boromir from Lord of the Rings, or Amy Adams' character in Nocturnal Animals. But if you choose the wrong point of view, or are inconsistent with your point of view, you will undermine the character and the story. Either will leave your audience, and perhaps even yourself as a writer, with a sense of what might have been, and regret is never a good thing. So how to avoid this scenario? Well, by weighing up the pros and cons for the first person point of view, the second person point of view, the third person omniscient point of view, and the third person limited point of view. We shall look at the advantages and disadvantages for each of these POVs so that you can decide which point of view is best for your narrative. And I hope my tips make the writing process a little easier for you as well. The first person point of view. The first person point of view is when you, as a writer, use I, me and my in your prose. Examples of authors who have written their books in the first person point of view include Harper Lee in To Kill a Mockingbird, Paula Hawkins in The Girl on the Train, and Lyndsey Gallagher in The 7-Year Itch. You can certainly get a good flavour for what the first-person POV looks and feels like from these examples. Plus, if you like romance novels, then I certainly recommend Lyndsey Gallagher's The 7-Year Itch. She is a wonderful romance writer, and since publishing The 7-Year Itch, she has published a further 2 books, and another is being written as we speak. Moreover, I had the privilege of interviewing Lyndsey on my blog last year. Check out the interview and her books. I have left links in the description below. The advantages and disadvantages of the first person point of view. The advantages for the first person point of view are: 1. The style puts the audience in the shoes of the POV character, so that you see what the POV character sees, you hear what he thinks, and you feel what he feels. 2. The style enables the audience to be intimately close with the POV character. 3. The style can create strong empathy for the POV character, as the audience has total understanding for his positive attributes, flaws, internal struggles, and the decisions that he makes. 4. You, as the writer, can give a unique perspective about the society from which your point of view character comes from or lives in. 5. You, the writer, can give your POV character a very satisfying story arc. 6. You, the writer, can make your story suspenseful, as the POV character and the audience vicariously cannot see what is coming in advance. And 7. You, as the writer, can have as many POV characters as you like. But if you are now thinking that the first person point of view is right for your narrative, consider this scene from Hook.
I want, me, mine, now.
While what Captain Hook is doing in this scene is pure evil, as he is indoctrinating Peter Pan's children, turning them against their father by using elements of the truth to paint a complete falsehood, he nevertheless has a point as to how the first person point of view can come across. 1. I, me, and my can grate very quickly on the audience. Imagine listening to a narcissist going on about himself endlessly, and you'll get the drift. Other disadvantages for the first person point of view include: the POV character can come across as selfish even if he is not selfish at all. The POV character needs to have an incredibly interesting personality, and usually in an untrustworthy way, in order to keep the audience's attention. Otherwise, the audience are likely to get fed up of the POV character quickly. This style of POV limits you, the writer, to telling your narrative solely through the viewpoint of one perspective, and having too many POV characters with the prose always saying I, me and my can become confusing after a while, as the audience may lose track as to whose POV they are reading from. General conclusions about the first-person point of view. In general, the first-person point of view is not the most common way of writing fiction and fantasy novels. In the main, it is used for memoirs and autobiographies. Nevertheless, this style of POV has been used in fiction before, and successfully so. But if you are going to use the first-person POV for your narrative, think very carefully as to how your point of view character sounds, as he can come across as very self-centered very quickly. Indeed, if you want your audience to be intimately close with your POV character, consider using the third-person limited POV, which we will come to later in this video. The second-person POV. When weighing up how to choose the right point of view for your narrative, you should consider the second-person point of view. This is when you, as a writer, use you or your in the prose, either explicitly or implicitly. To give you a sense of what I mean about explicitly and implicitly, explicitly means that the writer uses the word you or your in the prose, e.g., you will go to the supermarket and you will buy chicken. And implicitly means that the writer does not write you or your in the prose, but it is still there, e.g., go to the supermarket and buy chicken. I must admit that I have never read a book entirely in the second-person point of view. Nevertheless, from research, some authors who have used the second-person point of view in their books include Bright Lights, Big City by J. McInerney and You by Caroline Kepnes. The nearest I have come to reading a book in the second-person POV is a hybrid between the first and second-person POVs in Michael Sarais' contemporary novel, All of My Friends Are Rich. I loved this book. Michael is a very talented writer who has created an engaging and dryly funny main character who makes mistake after mistake. I strongly recommend his book. That's Michael Sarais' All of My Friends Are Rich, Michael Sarais' All of My Friends Are Rich. Check it out, and the interview that I did with Michael on my blog earlier this year. The advantages and disadvantages of the second-person POV. As I have never read a book completely from the second-person point of view, I can't say exactly what the advantages are. Nevertheless, I imagine them to be 1. You, as the writer, may be able to create an immediate connection between the POV character and your audience that no other style can reach. 2. You may be able to create immediate empathy for the POV character like no other style. And 3. By using you and your, either explicitly or implicitly, your audience may feel as if the narrative is talking directly to them. On the other hand, the disadvantages for the second-person POV, as I imagine them, are 1. This style may be extremely hard to maintain for an entire novel, let alone a trilogy or longer. 2. The audience may feel as if the narrative is telling them what to do, perhaps even to the point of verbal assault, after a short period of time. And 3. While this style of POV may create immediate connection and/or empathy for your POV character, the audience may lose empathy or sympathy for your POV character equally as quickly. Some general conclusions about the second-person POV. In general, the second-person POV is almost never used for narrative fiction and fantasy. Yes, sometimes it is used for short stories like Susan Minott's Lust, but normally, second-person POV narratives are for self-help and instruction manuals, how-to books and video tutorials, as well as advertising campaigns. Like Lord Kitchener's famous "Your Country Needs You" finger-pointing poster. The third-person omniscient point of view. This is when the writer uses he or she in the prose when referring to the main character, and the writer is like a god hovering above the POV character as he can see everything in front of, to the side of, and behind the POV character. In this style of POV, the writer predominantly follows the main character, but occasionally he mixes things up and follows another character at his choosing. The advantages and disadvantages of the third-person omniscient point of view. The advantages of this style of POV are: 1. It makes the narrative relatively easy to write. 2. You, as the writer, can get inside the heads of any of your characters when and as you like. 3. All of the major characters can give an account of themselves and can give details that the main character may not know. And 4. You, as the writer, are not limited to the viewpoint of a single character, so your story can come across as objective. The disadvantages, however, of the third-person omniscient POV are: 1. There is little by way of suspense, as the audience can see what is coming in advance. 2. The story is told at arm's length from the POV character, so the audience lacks intimacy with the POV character, which in turn means that the audience cannot fully know or understand the complexity of the POV character's personality. And 3. The so-called objectivity of the prose can hinder the story as it can become too tell-heavy. General conclusions about the third-person omniscient point of view. In general, this style of POV is a common way of writing high/light fantasy, which is usually aimed at a younger audience. And yes, it works both ways. You should consider your target audience when determining the right point of view for your narrative. Examples of books in the third-person omniscient point of view include David Eddings' Belgariad and Malloreon series, and Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials trilogy. Nevertheless, the third-person omniscient point of view has not solely been used for higher fantasy novels, or indeed for the fantasy genre full stop. It has been used by some classic authors such as Leo Tolstoy in Anna Karenina, Oscar Wilde in The Picture of Dorian Gray, and George Orwell in Animal Farm and 1984. In addition, journalists, news reporters, economists, and historians often use this style of POV as it makes their writings come across as more objective. The third-person limited point of view. This is when the writer uses he or she in the prose when referring to his POV character, but unlike his omniscient counterpart, in this style of POV, the writer is not a god hovering above his main character, but rather he is inside his head. The advantages and disadvantages of the third-person limited point of view. The advantages of the third-person limited POV are: 1. It is like the first-person POV, only more nuanced and devoid of the grating, self-centered I, me and my in the prose. 2. The audience can get intimately close to the POV character, as they hear what he thinks, sees what he sees, and feels what he feels. 3. The audience can fully understand the POV character's strengths, weaknesses, flaws, and internal conflicts, as well as why he makes the decisions that he does. 4. You, as the writer, can give a unique perspective about the society from which your POV character comes from or lives in. 5. You, the writer, can give your POV character a very satisfying story arc. 6. You, the writer, can make your story suspenseful, as the POV character and the audience vicariously cannot see what is coming in advance. And 7. You, as the writer, can have as many POV characters as you like. The disadvantages, however, of the third-person limited POV are: 1. It is significantly harder to write than the third-person omniscient point of view. 2. You, as the writer, have to carefully plan out your story to ensure that the POV characters, if indeed there is more than one POV character, are in the right place at the right time. 3. You, as the writer, are limited to the sole perspective, bias and knowledge of the POV character. 4. You, as the writer, must make sure that every one of your POV characters have agency. 5. You, as the writer, must carefully choose which character to make as your POV character, as he has to be uniquely positioned, have the complexity, personality-wise, and have the agency to make the story worthwhile and engaging. And 6. If the POV character does not know details about another character or society, you cannot share these details until he learns them. General conclusions about the third-person limited point of view. In general, the third-person limited POV is a common way of writing low/dark fantasy. It is favoured by George R.R. Martin in his A Song of Ice and Fire series, Mark Lawrence in his Broken Empire series, and Joe Abercrombie in his First Law series. However, the third-person limited POV is not solely limited, pardon the really bad pun, to the low or dark fantasy genre. It has been used by some classic authors, such as Ernest Hemingway in For Whom the Bells Toll, Charles Dickens in A Christmas Carol, and Jane Austen in Pride and Prejudice, to name but three. Final tip about choosing the right point of view for your narrative: don't be afraid to start in one point of view and then change to another later on. Choosing the right style of POV for your narrative is not easy. All I can say is that you need not worry about making a perceived mistake with it, i.e. starting your narrative off in one style of POV, but later on realising that your narrative would be better served being written in another style of POV. It's okay, it's not a crime. You just have to go over your manuscript and make amendments for consistency purposes. If that sounds like a daunting prospect to you because you have already written a lot, just know that I started writing my as yet unpublished fantasy series in the Third Person Omniscient POV, but realised 3 years down the line that it would work better in the Third Person Limited POV. And believe it or not, I actually enjoyed making all the amendments to my manuscript. Yes, it took the best part of a year to make all the changes, but it was worth it, and it enabled me to enhance my writing skills at the same time. So all's well that ends well, really. Hopefully. The series is still unpublished after all. And that's all I have for you today, guys. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have enjoyed this video and found it useful, interesting, and helpful. Like, comment, and hit that subscribe button, and tell me, which style of POV do you favour most as a writer and as a reader? Moreover, my debut fantasy novella, The Sultan's Daughter, is out. It is written from the third-person limited point of view so that you can get an intimate connection and a nuanced understanding for my main character, Princess Nalini, and it is short, fast-paced, and full of suspense. If that is the kind of book you enjoy reading, then check it out, and then you will be able to see as to whether or not I keep to my own writing tips. Otherwise, join me next time when we'll discuss how to create a believable fantasy world. Until then, keep well. Once again, guys, I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching my video. I really appreciate it and I hope you've enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button and then you will be the first to receive more awesome content from my channel, and I hope to see you again soon.